In this video, I'm going to walk you through Lesson 5 of Unit 7.1 from OpenSciEd. Okay, so in Lesson 4, we really realized that a new substance was made because it's a gas at room temperature. And gas, or state of matter, is a property of matter, and the beginning ingredients were solids and liquids, and now we have a gas. So it must be a new substance. So we navigate in by talking about the evidence we've collected. This slide will help your students turn and talk to a partner and talk about that evidence to kind of connect back to Lesson 4. And then we consider what gases we already know about, and we brainstorm a list. Here's some ideas that your students might share: gas in a helium balloon, gas in the Goodyear blimp or other blimps that appear at sports events, gas stove cooktops, gas grills, gas that's in a soda when you has fizzes and those bubbles. So just make a list. We're really trying to connect to students' lives and make this relevant. And so what gases do they know of in their own lives? We're then going to introduce the idea that there is a new property of matter we haven't talked about yet, and that is flammability. And you're going to add the term flammability to your word wall, and it's how a substance interacts with water. So have that one ready to go. And we're going to then look at a property of data for gases handout, and every student will need one of these. It's also going to be used on their assessment in Lesson 6, but let's take a look at it. So on this handout, you're probably going to need to explain a few things. The first one are here's common gases that are found in our atmosphere. This is approximately how much of that gas is found in the air outside. Boiling point is what temperature that gas boils. And so notice that they all boil much below zero. So that's why they're gas at room temperature. And then density, this is something they probably do not have a lot of experience with. We're going to begin to develop density in this lesson. We're going to continue to develop it in the second lesson set. By the end of this lesson, students will have added to the key ideas chart, and we will have understood that gases that have higher density than air, so we have about 1.16 is grams per liter is the density of air. Anything that's higher than that is going to be more dense than air, and it's going to sink or go down when it's surrounded in air. And then if anything is less than 1.16, so like let's look at helium, it's 0.179. That's less than the density of air. So that's going to float and it's going to rise up. So by the end of this lesson, we'll have that understanding of what sinks, what rises due to density, and what it's surrounded by. You may do a density column here to kind of further develop those ideas, but you don't need to go too deep into the density lab. That's going to happen in lesson set 2. All right, flammability. This is what we're talking about now. So we're going to look at which gases extinguish flames. You may need to develop the word extinguish. It's going to put out a flame. Sometimes they will increase a flame. Air will maintain an open flame. So talking about what this means and how we're going to use this to test gases to figure out what they are. So let's do that next. So first we predict what's going to happen if we test regular air with a flame, helium with a flame, and bath bomb gas with a flame. And there are directions on how to do the bath bomb gas and the helium. There's also 2 videos for you to watch to kind of see how to do this. If your classroom or your school does not allow an open flame, then you definitely will need to use the videos instead of doing these flammability tests, but they're pretty easy. I will suggest you use a wood matchstick, a little bit easier to stick into the neck of the flask. You're going to use a flask and rubber stoppers here. Just be careful you don't put too many bath bombs in that flask because it will build up a lot of pressure. I think it says 5 is the most you should use, and it's bath bomb B. Okay, so after you have shown students how to properly use matches and test helium and air and bath bomb gas, and we notice that air maintains the flame, helium and the bath bomb gas both put out the flame. So we then look to density as something that might help us decide between which of the remaining gases it could be. So once we've completed our first round of tests of flammability to show what it means to extinguish a flame and what it means to maintain a flame, we're going to predict and test the behavior of helium gas due to the density of gas. And so there is procedures for you to follow. Again, I would do this as a demo. You probably don't have a lot of helium for students to use. And then here is a video to support you. And you can see that when the match is below the flask right here, that it doesn't go out because the helium is less dense than air. It stays up in the flask. But then if I put the cap on and I flip this over and I put the match on top, the helium floats up and it's going to put the gas out. It's going to put the flame out. So once we've demonstrated how to do this, we're then going to update our key model ideas. And let's take a look at this. We're going to add these two ideas to our chart, talking about that less dense gases and liquids are going to float upward when surrounded by denser gases, and denser gases and liquids sink downward when surrounded by less dense gas. So now that we've developed those key ideas, we're going to test it with the bath bomb gas. And first, before we do that, we do some predictive explanations. There is a handout that students will complete. If it's more dense than air, it's going to do this. If it's less dense than air, it's going to do this. So we're really developing density, the ideas around density, by doing this and making sure they can understand the results that they're going to get. And then they're going to test their predictions. And so there is some procedures on a slide to help you. They're going to pour out basically the gas into an aluminum tin with a tea candle in it, and that shows that it goes downward. Before they do that, they test it above the bottle, and they're using plastic bottles with lids. Soda bottles work the best because the caps really stay on. But anyways, we come up with the idea that the gas from the bath bomb is more dense than air. So that helped us actually eliminate a few more gases and figure out which three it could be. And it's going to be nitrogen, argon, or carbon dioxide at this point. It's going to be one of those three because they're all more dense than air and they all extinguish a flame. So we're showing how we use this property of matter to identify which substance it is. And so then students are going to add what they figured out to their progress trackers and record which gases it could be. And then we're going to write a CER. There is something in the teacher guide talking about how students will meet with groups and talk about what they're going to put in their CER before they write it. However, we're going to use these key model ideas that we have been developing, and we just added 2 to this chart, to construct a CER. And let me open this up. This is a poster that is very helpful in supporting students in writing their CER. It's a scaffold. We're going to write a claim that answers a question about a phenomenon. So what gas is this? We're going to support our claim with both evidence and reasoning. Evidence references the data we collected, and reasoning is going to reference the key model ideas. Students often have a very hard time with reasoning, so we're showing the science ideas that we have figured out help connect our evidence to the claim. And that's about it. This is a nice formative assessment opportunity right here for the CER. And this is all about using flammability and density to determine that the gas is one of 3. All right, let's talk about the materials in the next video.